Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. On August 15th, Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced plans to give every Indian citizen a unique health ID as part of the National Digital Health Mission, which will digitize health records as well as provide a registry of doctors and health facilities. The decision has immense potential to change India's health infrastructure while also raising concerns over privacy and efficient implementation. To begin with, the Health ID will undoubtedly give a much-needed technological impetus to a sector that has long been found wanting, more so amid the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. However, unlike Aadhaar, the Health ID isn't mandatory and is only one of the components of the mission, which the government reckons will go a long way in providing universal health coverage to over 1.3 billion people. The NDHM has been rolled out on a pilot mode in 6 union territories. It comprises 6 areas including Health ID, DigiDoctor, Health Facility Registry, Personal Health Records, e-pharmacy and telemedicine. In this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the National Digital Health Mission and data compliance. Joining me on the program today are R.K. Srivastav, former Director General, Health Services, Government of India, D.K. Agarwal, President, PhD, Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Jitin Jain, Digital Technology Expert. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. All right, Dr. Srivastav, I'd like to begin the program with you. Let's first analyze and understand the scope and also the salient features of the National Digital Health Mission.
Let me share with you the background of National Digital Health Mission. It is not like this that one fine morning it has been announced like this. The work on the National Digital Health Mission started with the National Health Policy 2017, wherein it was clearly mentioned, keeping in mind the World Health Assembly resolutions about the digital health, which was also the same year, that the digital technology are to be integrated within the healthcare system. And thereafter, there were year after year changes going on globally as well as nationally. When the national blueprint was prepared somewhere in 2018. At similar time, the national WHO guideline for the digital health program also came. And finally, it culminated into the National Digital Health Mission, which was announced by the Prime Minister with 6 major components, which you have just now mentioned, on 15th August from the Red Fort. Now, the reason why the technology integration was necessary in India is very well explained within the vision component of the National Digital Health Mission. Now, first thing is that all the gaps which are seen in delivery of the healthcare services, it was analyzed and found very clearly that all these gaps can be very well addressed by the digital technologies. Number 2 was that if we want really to achieve the universal health coverage, all these technologies should be tested, standardized, and thereafter integrated within the delivery system in a mission mode. So this vision was very clear how it can go forward. And if you look at the components which are there in the digital health coverage, ultimately, they say that it should be efficient, it should be accessible, it should be inclusive, it should be affordable, it should be timely, and it should be safe also. And it should create large amount of the database, lot of informations, and create good infrastructure. Now look at all these things, keeping in mind the 6 major components which are spelled out in the Digital Health Mission. We feel that Digital Health Mission is one thing, if it is properly handled, properly integrated into the National Health Mission, it will lead not only for development of quicker quality delivery of the services, but also create such a large database, which is in this mission a patient-owned database, ultimately going to jail on the basis of informed consent into the East. So I look at this mission as a challenge of technology before the health care planner, implementer, and the doctors so that they can assimilate it in a scientific way in the health delivery program.
Okay, points taken. Let me take the points that you're making forward as well. Let's also understand another aspect. Mr. Agarwal, what is the status of the digital health infrastructure or technology in the country as it stands today? You know, we are talking about telemedicine, we are talking about DigiDoctor, we're talking about so many of these aspects. But what is the status of the infrastructure as well as the technology itself?
You are right. There is a very, I'll say, great attempt being made by our Honorable Prime Minister to bring digitization in healthcare sector. However, if you look at the infrastructure spent, the public spend, which is hardly around 1.3%. If you look at Canada, which is spending more than 8.3% of their GDP, which is number one in the healthcare in the world. If you look at Australia, they are spending almost 6.3% of their GDP on healthcare. But in case of India, we have, as per one report by US, one agency, that we are short by 6 lakh doctors. We have a patient-doctor ratio of 1:1456, which is, by any standard, we are lacking in infrastructure. And though the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, it also talks about creating a wellness infrastructure in all our towns and district level. But the fact is that if you look at the overall health infrastructure, we are lacking substantially. But as the silver lining is that the government is talking of increasing this infrastructure, the spend on infrastructure by almost 2.5% by 2025 of the GDP. So that gives us comfort. But if I talk about this National Digital Health Mission, this is going to be a game changer in the sense that data is the new oil. And as Mr. Srivastav rightly pointed out, that this would create a huge database. And if we have that kind of a database, if we can make sure that these data are not, the data security and privacy is maintained, and if we can anonymize these data, and these data can be put then to various analysis, and the concept of national data sandbox and national data stack, which is, the sandbox can be used for testing various products, number of research can be carried out, the pattern of diseases which are there, they can be looked at, and any pandemic which is going to happen, the early signs, early warning signals can be given. And similarly, the data stack, which can be used by the insurance agencies to devise good products, which can be used by health facility providers to create the suitable systems, infrastructure, and by the policymakers to create suitable infrastructure. I think the data creation is very, very substantial benefit which we are going to get. However, the concern of privacy and confidentiality, how we process the data safely and securely, how individual data is not being disclosed even by accident. I mean, these are the things which are going to be very important. And I believe that this is a draft. So there are a number of suggestions which are going to come. The date of the submission of draft has been extended from 3rd of September to 10th of September. So I'm sure that people would have a lot of time, and these suggestions are going to be, of course, very important for making a suitable policy.
Absolutely. Okay, let me take the points that you're making forward with Jitin. So Jitin, there's no doubt that data is the new gold, and just like how gold is mined, we've seen mining of data as well, and many a times by unscrupulous, identities. So what about data compliance? What about privacy and all of these other issues?
See, we are, the data privacy law in India is still under consideration with the parliamentary committee, standing committee. So we whatever we have as a right to privacy or right to data privacy is through the judicial pronouncements of Supreme Court orders. Having said that, look, Aadhaar went into a controversy, and then finally, when the culmination came in a form of privacy judgment, several schemes of the government had to be dealing with Aadhaar, because they said that Aadhaar cannot be linked with everything. If they had allowed Aadhaar to be linked, as government wanted, then the need of separate unique ID for health services may not have arrived. I mean, you could have used Aadhaar number like it happens in the West, like SSN number is there for all the services. Now, since you cannot force people to make Aadhaar, you can't link Aadhaar with other records because, there might be a lobby which might come up and say that government is now willing to do some sort of medical surveillance. There are all sort of people we have. So what government has figured out is I think a temporary arrangement which takes care of account of data privacy issues, which also ensures that our policies, our willingness to serve the last leg of society does not suffer because of this tricky issues of Aadhaar and data privacy. So what they have done, they have decided to give a unique identifier to every single citizen or a patient in India. That unique identifier could be used across all hospitals, across all private labs, private hospitals. So which is a unique feature. I mean, if you look in Delhi, AIIMS and other government hospitals are also, having a common unique ID. You could go to online websites and seek a doctor's appointment. It might look very simple, but look at the transformation it has brought. Just 4 years ago, you would have to stand for 1 hour, 2 hours in the queue at AIIMS in the morning at 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. just to get a simple appointment. Then you will have to run post to pillar to every department to get your X-ray or CT scan reports. But today, you can just go online, just put your unique health ID, get an appointment. All your lab reports are there in the cloud. You can download sitting at home. So imagine what it could do when this entire ecosystem is brought to all labs and all hospitals in India. So the problem of legacy health records will be solved. The poor people will be able to maintain his health record for 10 years, 12 years across all hospitals. Now club it with the Ayushman Bharat, where you are planning to provide the biggest healthcare coverage scheme and the insurance scheme to the size of biggest population in the world. So now the quantum of data which will be generated about the kind of disease which are treated, kind of complaints which are coming in, as I rightly said, and then the type of analytics you would draw over the data would be a huge advantage for health sector in India. I mean, kind of insurance schemes you want, and that remains to be seen, that how will government will share. I'm sure they will not share data, but what sort of analytics will they share with WHO or private organizations, or for health policy making, where more infrastructure is required. And I agree with the panelists that it will really help in giving early warning signals for the outbreak of any pandemic or any disease, because everything will be in one single database and you will have a bird eye view of the entire health status of whole country. So I think this is going to be a game changer.
Right. Okay. So I think it's well established that this is indeed going to be a game changer as far as the health sector in the country is concerned. Taking the discussion forward now, Dr. Srivastav, let's not forget that the NDHM has already been rolled out on a pilot mode in 6 union territories. So what has the experience been like, and what is it that you like to see, being incorporated and being worked on?
Okay, before I actually respond to your question, let me try to share with you. The government has announced a pilot which is operating in 6 union territories. But before this, good number of non-government, non-profit organizations have been running pieces of the component of digital health program in different states and in different size. Say, I operate in a organization which is known as Wish Foundation, and we run about 100 technology-enabled primary health centers. Now they are all operating on tablet. They are all having a virtual doctor, what we call Digi Doctor over here. They have got their own unique ID. There is a drug vending system which is based on a machine which is developed, putting the essential drug into it, and a dashboard to have monitoring. So we have got many things which are available in the sector of the infrastructure. The second thing, let us not forget the lesson we have learned during the COVID period, how the digital technology can be adopted in a fast track mode so that we can solve the big problem. Say education sector, say health delivery sector, the digital technology has helped us in transforming the frontline worker into a trained workforce in numbers which would otherwise have not been possible if we would not have adopted this technology. By keeping these two things in the mind, let us look at the pilot, the 7 pillars of the pilot which we are trying to work out and try to establish some type of sanctity to it at the end of completion of the pilot. Now, unique ID is one thing. There are legal and there are personal debate on it. And I hope whatever type of formulation the NHA is going to adopt for this unique ID is ultimately going to harmonize an acceptable unique health related ID which can gradually go into the system. The second is the DigiDoctor. The DigiDoctor is something which has got different type of understanding in the eye of ordinary user. Some find it a telephone consultation, some find it a virtual doctor trying to consult, some find it a basic information in the primary health care, some find it as a type of specialist consultation. Other says that with consultation we can transfer our investigations, graphics. So it has got different type of connotation. The second thing about the DigiDoctor, it will be able to identify the digital segment of various DigiDoctors which are available there within the pilot states. The third thing is the PHR, the personal health record. Now, personal health record is entirely different from the EHR. It is a citizen-owned record. Now, at least if I am a patient for coming 10 years, it will be in my custody how my health was behaving rightly or wrongly and how my doctors were responding. At least that thing will be available with me. And it is up to me to give an informed consent to somebody if they want to assimilate it into a EHR. That system will also work out.
Sure.
Now, if we look at these 2 or 3 systems, and then lastly the e-pharmacy. E-pharmacy at present is not within the system, but there are various type of techniques which are being used. If you look at Jan Aushadhi, if you look at other type of systems which are there, they are operating the same way. Now, all these things put up in right place, and remember that this particular National Digital Health Program is coordinated by NHA and not by the Secretary of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. It means that the government has got in its mind that it is going to create a very, very huge right type of data bank, registries of the patients, registries of different diseases, registries of the human resource, and all these things will correlate to the insurance system with government is taking it forward. So this database is clearly in the mind of the government. We will have an ecosystem totally worked out at the end of this pilot phase. And if I have to give a suggestion for it, then I will say, please have partnership with all those stakeholders and players who are relevant in this system and focus on primary health care. A top-down approach in digital health and a bottoms-up approach in primary health care should blend somewhere, because the basic problem about the infrastructures, the optical fibers, the various type of towers, the connectivity, the electricity are there in the villages. Otherwise, Prime Minister would not have announced that in 1000 days we will take the optical fiber to last village. So these problems are there. So we should adopt a bottoms-up approach and a top-down guideline, and it will give a blend of a doable type of National Digital Health Mission, which will bring back whatever has been talked by the different experts over here.
Absolutely. All right. So, Mr. Agarwal, so clearly Dr. Srivastava has pointed out how digital technology has been fast-tracked during the pandemic and how we've seen some good results. So at a time like this, when we are putting our best foot forward, what are the kind of opportunities do you foresee, for the private sector as far as digital health technology is concerned?
See, there have been a number of startups which were struggling, but now they would register with this platform, and then the number of opportunities will arise for these companies. And once we create a digital ecosystem, and once we are part of the entire digital health mission ecosystem, I'm sure that the requirement of health infrastructure, the requirement of healthcare facilities, the requirement of doctors, and the access to patients, access to even the rural population, which otherwise would not have come to those doctors, to those facilities, to those e-commerce platforms. Now everybody would have that access. So this would actually increase the cake size for the private sector, and the kind of growth which would be witnessed in the healthcare sector. The private sector is definitely going to benefit. And secondly, even the public expenditure as well as the private expenditure on healthcare system, because once we have this entire ecosystem being created, a huge amount of money is going to be spent on creating that kind of infrastructure. So definitely the private players, they are going to benefit out of this spending. So I believe that with this initiative, there are going to be huge opportunities. But I would like to mention a few things. When we actually implement, the real problem comes when you start implementing it. So there are small clinics, there are doctors who might not have that kind of infrastructure. So if there is any updation of data which is not right, you have to also see that the customer's data is being updated rightly. If wrong data are updated, then I believe, I don't know whether this is included in the policy document or not, the draft policy document, whether the patient has a right to change his updated records, whether he has that facility, because he has the facility to give consent, he has the facility to allow any doctor or any health facilities to see his records, but whether he has the facility to update his records if the records are not right. So these are certain challenges which have to be looked at. So I'm sure that my fellow speakers, my fellow panelists, they would also talk on that.
Absolutely. So Jitin Jain, what are some of the digital technology related challenges that need to be addressed that you foresee coming up? Dr. Srivastav also pointed out about, bandwidth and so on and so forth. So how do we address all these issues, and what are some of the challenges that you see?
So one definitely is the infrastructure issue, that how do you, take the infrastructure to the last mile of this nation, especially in the rural areas. So if you were to connect the small clinics run by small doctors in the villages, would they also be able to update records? I don't think so, because they don't even have a computer. So how do you deal with that problem? So you are looking at 40% of population which would not have access to this technology. So you might be able to bring optic fiber to village, but I'm sure you're not going to give them a computer to every doctor. So those are challenges probably, but that should not stop us, because even if we are able to cover less 60%, let's go for it. With time, probably more coverage will increase multifold. So let's not expect 100% coverage on day one. The bigger challenge would lie, I think, in last 7-8 years, the kind of digitization we are having, at the kind of speed at which we are moving towards digitizing everything, the cyber security and the digital hygiene and digital awareness have not moved along with it. People are still falling to simple lottery scams and SMS scams, on email scams, OTP frauds. 98% complaints which are pending for the financial frauds in the police systems across India are of OTP fraud. So, people are falling for basic this thing. People still share their passwords, ATM pins, etc. So the medical health data, which is a highly critical personal data in this country where you do not have that much of awareness, how do you deal with that problem? A, in terms of awareness of end user, which is the patient, and second, the person who's a data aggregator, which is government. I mean, we saw examples that how private players who are making Aadhaar for the safety and ensuring that data is not deleted, they kept an Excel copy and later they forgot to delete, and that data got leaked. And then you start accusing the Aadhaar ecosystem. So mistakes do happen. So how do you ensure that the private hospital which are accessing the health record of a person take proper consent? The person who is handing over his card or health card or UHID is aware of what data is being accessed for what purpose. How do we ensure that there is no unauthorized access by a private lab? So these are kind of problems, because database will have data of everyone, be it a politician or an ordinary citizen. So these are tricky challenges. I'm sure the SOPs, when we see when the final policy comes out, we'll have to see what happens. But I think data privacy and data security will be a huge challenge, especially in this kind of database, which has got extremely critical personal data. Last, I think, how do you then it's an opt-in policy, right? It's not mandatory. So how do you then convince a large section of population to actually opt for it? It is for their benefit, but how do you convince them? So that sort of awareness campaign, those benefits have to be advertised properly and informed properly. And then at the end of the day, no matter what policy you bring, the end citizen has to see some benefit, some convenience. So one, yes, he might be able to get an appointment online, fine. He might be able to retain his health record on a card, fine. But what are the other benefits like, insurance coverage schemes or, early warnings or, online medicines? So those things are, urban population might not care, but the rural villages, which will be the actual beneficiary of the scheme, they have to be informed about it so that the opt-in ratio is at least, in that remaining 60% is at least 70 to 80%.
Sure. All right. So time to get quick closing comments now from all my guests with the best way forward. I've got very limited time, so I'm going to ask you to be brief, starting first with you, Dr. Srivastav.
I think that National Digital Health Mission is going to change the health sector tremendously. The three challenges which I foresee before it is the acceptability by the end user, interoperability of the system which are being developed, and lastly, but not the least, is the cyber security, which is related to the data. I think if we have seen the success of digital technology in programs like education done during the COVID period in health. So I am quite hopeful that this particular program, if taken well, will give the desired result.
All right. Mr. Agarwal.
Well, I believe that this is going to be a game changer in the healthcare sector. The key lies in implementation. And my sense is if you can take care of data privacy, confidentiality, and certain nuances, which I'm sure that we are going to get a lot of suggestions. So my sense is if we can implement this policy, India will have one of the best and most efficient, accessible, affordable healthcare system following this policy.
All right. And Jitin Jain, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
I think the union territories which are running the pilot do not even cover the 2% of Indian population. So once we have those results, I think instead of going for a full-fledged launch, we should go for a staggered launch. Maybe let's cover 100 to 300 model villages like the constituencies which were adopted by MPs in the previous term. So there are 100, 200 model villages we have. So we can implement there, especially in the rural areas, and then we can do the course correction early on so that we don't have to make any significant changes 2 years later after the full-fledged launch. So my only suggestion would be that keeping in account the data privacy, security and the infrastructure concerns, let us go in a staggered manner. Let's have one more stage after this UT pilot which is going on, maybe 300 to 400 villages and 50 odd cities, and then probably you can roll out a whole of India.
Okay. All right. On that note, then we'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this discussion is that it is not something that has been worked out overnight. That is the National Digital Health Mission. The mission itself is something that has been in the works for several years now. The aim of the mission is to address issues in the health sector through digital technology. Digitizing health is a game changer and will be a big boost for the digital technology sector. But data compliance and data privacy is a major concern that needs to be addressed along the way. Digital technology has been fast-tracked during the pandemic and has shown great results. It has helped the frontline warriors carry out their work more efficiently. Infrastructure and last-mile connectivity is going to be another big challenge, but we should not let that be a deterrent. We should go with what we have and make the most of it. With that, it's a wrap. See you again next time.